So when someone's looking at locations to buy, is something they should keep in mind somewhere they even like to go or they know about that area? Would that be beneficial, or should they go somewhere completely different?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's beneficial. Yes,
Okay.
I think it's a huge I mean, it makes a huge difference, and it's a huge lifestyle upgrade. I don't know why, if you could build a really successful portfolio and enjoy it, why you would say, no, I don't want to enjoy it. I just want a successful portfolio. So I get a lot of heat about this online all the time. Like, oh no, you don't have to be able to use your property. That's a myth. That's a fantasy land. Well, we've been living that fantasy for a long time. So come join us in Fantasyland, because it is available. So I do think that you should try to build a portfolio that you would like to enjoy. And it is a lifestyle upgrade, but it needs to be and make sense from an investability standpoint, right? And so when you're choosing your location, you have to make sure we start with those property goals. How much money do I have available? How much time do I have available? What am I really trying to do? Am I just trying to supplement a lifestyle with a vacation home, or am I really trying to build lifestyle and financial freedom?
Right.
Usually it's a combination of both, right? And what do I want that to look like? That'll help us identify locations. The very, very next step that most investors overlook is the regulations in those areas. Regulations are a huge, huge deal, and it should be the very first thing that you're looking at when you start to underwrite locations. So I'm going to quickly look at average acquisition cost versus average revenue, making sure that I can at least pay the bills and make some money on this property. Secondly, can I even operate as a short-term rental? Because if I can't, it's a no-go in that market, right? We're not going to go into that market. So we're just going to have to say, hey, listen, that doesn't work. Even though it might be investable, it doesn't work from a regulation standpoint.
Okay.
So location-wise, I'm looking for properties that I would enjoy and would like to use. Doesn't mean I'm going to use them every weekend. Doesn't mean it has to be drivable distance. Like we were talking about national parks before. I usually try to center our portfolio around state and national parks. I like the outdoors. I love the outdoors. And so, but my property in Georgia, before we bought it, I didn't know a whole heck of a lot about the Blue Ridge Mountains. I live in the mountains in Utah and love the Western Mountains and the Rockies, but I didn't know much about those mountains over there until I was some of our Vodyssey members live in that area, own in that area, start looking at it. I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. I like the outdoors, not necessarily drivable to Georgia from Utah. I have to jump on a plane and go visit, but I enjoy it. And so it doesn't need, when I say you should be familiar with an area, you should be familiar with what, the draw of that area is, what the profit driver is, and why are people going there? If it happens to be the great outdoors, which I love, and that's what we try to do, I'm all in. Doesn't mean it has to be in my backyard. It means I should be interested in the target audience and the draw that I'm trying to, if I have zero interest in the beach, why would I buy a beach property? Right. I don't understand when people say, hey, listen, I'm just in it for the investment side of it. I see properties fail all the time when the owner doesn't have that much interest in the property, and because they're not able to sell a good experience. And that's the business we're in.
Emotional connection sounds like to me that you got to have to your property. I like it. Okay. So episode 327, we break down regulations, how to find them, all the different kinds. We go through all the stuff you need to know about regulations. Episode 327. Go check it out. Now, someone may say, hey, well, Sean, I love to go to the beach. That's my favorite thing. But you know what? It seems like a really saturated market. We hear that all the time. Very saturated. And so maybe now I'll just go with the national parks. I hear that stat, it's a surging. Should I just go with that instead? What would you say to somebody if they're thinking, I love it, but I don't want to go because it's too saturated?
Yeah, well, I've said this for the last 7 years since I've been talking about this. Is saturation equals demand. So if you're afraid of saturation, you're afraid that you can't compete and you don't know what it takes to win a game, right? It's like, hey, listen, if I'm going to go play any sort of game and I want to win at that game, and I'm afraid to say, hey, listen, I don't want to join this league because everybody in that league is better than me. That's really what you're saying, right? Saturation just equals demand. These saturated markets, the consumer is spending a lot of money. So if you're not willing to learn to play the game correctly, you can go try to find a different market. The problem with it is you still don't know how to play the game. And so you're going to go into a less crowded market that may be less competitive. At some point, that market's going to mature and that market's going to grow up and you're still not going to be able to compete in that market because you don't know how to play the game.
Right.
It is, in my opinion, it is way easier to go get your unfair share of business in a saturated market than it is in some up and coming emerging market where the consumer is still not spending that much money. If the consumer's spending a lot of money there, I get really excited because we understand how to go get our unfair share of those dollars the consumer is spending. And so, over and over and over again, we've been saying this. Finally, other people are starting to say it, which is good. It's good that the narrative might be changing a little bit, because what everybody was saying is, oh, listen, you can't. I mean, it's why I did my case study in Cherry Log that we've talked so much about. I was on a podcast with a top trainer influencer in this space that said, Sean, you can't go to these markets anymore. You can't make money. You got to find the up and coming markets. You got to be on the outskirts. You got to find where the business is going. They're like skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is. And I'm saying, hey, listen, I'm staying where the money's being spent. When you start showing me declines in these areas, maybe we should have a conversation. But in all these really saturated markets, the consumer continues to spend money. And we've doubled down on this for years and years now. And finally, people are like, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there is something. Maybe it is a little easier to operate correctly, to go learn how to play a game. And the advantage is, the huge advantage that most people don't realize is that the average consumer, we talked about being a mom and pop business. The average retail investor, these mom and pop investors in here are not willing to go understand consumer behavior. They're not willing to go figure out actually how to play the game correctly. Our listeners, we're preaching to the choir. They are. They're listening for a reason. Again, we've talked about this. We are not that funny. We are not that entertaining. We try to be educational, right? And we try to share information that will help them gain those unfair advantages. But most people are not that. Most people are not going to do that. It gets very, very fun to go into these markets and you're like, hey man, the consumer loves these markets, but the competitors that we think are so saturated that are going to hurt us in our business is they don't know how to play the game very good. It's like walking in and you're an NBA player and you walk in and you're playing against junior high kids, right? And that's really what it feels like at the top of most of these markets. And these saturated markets are no different. So why not go play in a game and in a market where the saturation is there? Now, the challenge with some of the saturation markets has nothing to do with the saturation. It has to do with the average cost of properties in some of those markets goes up because they are very popular markets. And so your acquisition cost can all of a sudden make some of these markets a little uninvestable. It has nothing to do with the saturation. The saturation is a factor of why those properties are expensive, but the cost of the property versus the revenue you can generate sometimes is not that favorable. Not because it's not an investable market or the saturation is hurting it. It's because it is so investable that the prices of homes have gone up so fast.
Wow. Okay, that makes total sense. I'll make sure to link the case study to your property in the bio. Go check it out. Click it. It's about 3 hours long, I believe, but it's jam packed full, beginning to end, of all your stuff, all the taxes, all the money you saved, how you did it. It's a lot of stuff, but completely worth the watch. Go watch it. Okay, now let's ask this question: what about the size and layout of the house? Right? They found the market they'd like to go to. Is that a factor?
Every market, yes, it can be, but every market's different. You analyze that market by market, right? And say, hey, listen, is this more, and most market has a lot of crossover. You can have really good 1 and 2 bedrooms, and there's a lot of opportunity there. There's other markets and it goes all the way up to the big properties. And a lot of times there's a lot of crossover. You will find naturally that the top side and the bottom side size, whether it's really small or really big, you're going to have less competition. Usually your majority of your competition is going to be in that 3 to 4 bedroom mark, right? The bread and butter size. But it doesn't mean that that's not a good opportunity still. Most markets, you have a lot of crossover. Some markets, it is a little bit different where you're saying, hey, the opportunity actually is in the smaller properties or is actually in the bigger properties. And we don't see as much opportunity in some of those, the middle of the road type properties that they're kind of catch-all 3-bedroom type properties. But that's not most markets. It's across the board. You really have to look at it based on your budgets, what you can afford, because a 6-bedroom property is going to be more to buy, more to set up, more to furnish than a 1 or 2 bedroom, and you might find just as good opportunity in that market with a smaller property.
That's really
it's just data. You're just making data-backed decisions when you're looking at all that. It's market specific, and you're going to pull all that up in your underwriting.
Okay.